Okay, today guys, we are going to talk about how to apply slope into some real-world applications. The first thing we have here is this table showing rents and selling prices of properties from a game. We have selling prices over here, and we have the rents over here. We're going to call the selling price X, and our rents Y. So now we need to think about what do we need to do if we need to express the rent as a function of the selling price. Well, one of the things we need to have is to write the equation of the line. The first thing we can do with the equation of the line is to find the slope. So find the slope by taking y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we pick any 2 points we want. I'm just going to pick these first 2 points. And we plug that in and find the slope. So we say m is equal to 12 minus 9 over 90 minus 75. 12 minus 9 is 3. 90 minus 75 is 15. So my slope is 1/5. Now, we need the equation though. This gives us our slope. We also need the y-intercept. So we pick a point. It doesn't matter which point we pick. Let's pick this one here, the 90. And we're going to put that into our slope-intercept. So our y is 12. So say 12 equals our slope, 1/5 times 90 plus b. Well, 5 goes into 90. 19 times. Or if I take 1/5 times 90, I should get 19. So I get 12 equals 19 plus b. Give myself a little bit more room to write here. I've got minus 19 on both sides. And so I get b equals -7. Now I can write the equation using my slope and my y-intercept. So I get y equals my slope, which is 1/5 x minus 7. Now this next question says, what would the selling price be if the rent was $45? Would you talk to your side partner about what you think you want to do here? Pause this video for just a minute and talk to your side partner. Okay, so the rent is 45. If we look up here, the rent is our y value, which means we have to plug the 45 in for y. So using our equation, y equals 1/5 x minus 7. We get 45 because that's our y equals 1/5 x. We don't know what that is. Minus 7, so we have to solve. So we're going to add 7 to both sides. And we get 1/5 x equals 52. Now we've got this 1/5. How do I get rid of that? If I multiply both sides by 5, I get x equals 5 times 52, which is $255. All right, let's look at our next example. Okay, so for our next example, it says a ski lift carries skiers from an altitude of 1,800 feet to an altitude of 3,000 feet over a horizontal distance of 2,000 feet. We need to find the average slope of this part of the mountain, and we're going to graph the elevation against the distance. So if we're going to graph the elevation against the distance, then our elevation is going to be our y, that's our height. And our distance is going to be our x. Okay. Now, if we start at 1,800 feet, that is our first height. But what is our initial distance? Have we traveled anywhere to horizontally? No. So our horizontal distance is 0, and our vertical distance is 1,800 feet. Now we can graph that here. And it would be that point right there, 0, 1,800. Then we rise to an altitude of 3,000 feet over a horizontal distance of 2,000 feet. So our horizontal is 2,000 and our vertical is 3,000. So that's our next point. We could graph that over here, and that would be the point 2,000, 3,000. It says find the average slope. So how do we find slope? Do that. Pause this video so you can do the slope. All right, have you had a chance to calculate the slope? It should have been m equals 3,000 minus 1,800 over 2,000 minus 0. That is 1,200 over 2,000, which simplifies to 3/5. That is our slope. That's the average slope for that part of the mountain. Now it says, what do the x and y intercepts represent? Well, what does the x-intercept represent? Where would that x-intercept be? It would be way over here. Are we going to have an x-intercept for this one? No, we won't, because our starting height is 1,800. It would be our horizontal distance at a height of 0, but we can't get way over here. We'd have a negative distance, and it's impossible to travel a negative distance. But what does this y-intercept represent? It represents our starting height, because our horizontal distance is 0, our vertical distance is 1,800, and so that y-intercept represents our vertical distance. What is the equation for the line? Well, remember that's y equals mx plus b, but b is our y-intercept, and what is our y-intercept here? It's 1,800, and what's our slope? 3/5. So y equals 3/5 x plus 1,800 is our equation of the line. Let's look at our next example. All right, so we're going to look at this next example. It says a truck driver is at mile marker 624 on Interstate 10. After 3 hours, the driver reaches mile marker 432. Find his average speed and graph his location on I-10 in terms of mile markers. So we're going to make a graph. We're going to say it's distance over time. So time is going to go on the horizontal. Distance is going to go on the vertical. Now, this 624 and this 432, do you know what those represent? That represents his distance traveled. So if you take 624 minus 432, he has traveled a total of 192 miles. When we think about starting, how far has he traveled when he first starts? He has traveled 0 miles. How far has he traveled when he first, how long has he traveled when he first starts? He has traveled 0 hours. And so his starting point is 0, 0. After how long has he traveled the 192 miles? 3 hours. So we're going to go over here, out 3 and up 192. And that would be his distance. That would be his distance over time. So Average speed is distance over time. That's just his slope. So go ahead and calculate it. Pause it here so you can calculate the slope. All right, so did you calculate it like this? 192 minus 0 over 3 minus 0, which is 192 over 3, which is 64 miles per hour. What do the x and y intercepts represent? Talk to your side partner about that. Pause this video and talk to someone about that. What does this x and y intercept represent? Okay, so if you have the x and the y intercept, what does it represent? It talks about his starting time and his starting distance. Well, what are they? They're both 0. What is the equation for the line? Well, what's the y-intercept? 0. And what's the slope? 64. So what's the equation for the line? Y equals 64x. You could put the plus 0, but you don't need to. All right, we're going to look at one last example. Before we do that, we're going to hand out today's homework assignment so that you can look at it. It's the example on the back. It talks about Polly's Pizza Place. All right, so you should have this graph. Let me just make it a little bit smaller here so we can all see it. And we want to know, according to the homework problem, we says write the x and y intercepts and describe what they mean. We're going to come back to that in just a minute. We're going to start with giving the slope and describe its importance to the graph and Polly. So how do we find the slope? Right. You should be able to calculate the slope. We have 2 points. We have that point and that point. So we're going to pause this so you can find the slope. Okay, have you had a chance to find the slope? So you get m equals 210 minus negative 90 over 50 minus 0. That's a negative 90 up here. That becomes 300 over 50. So my slope is 6. Now, what is that saying? Well, this is the number of pizzas that are sold, and this is the profit. So this is $6 for every 1 pizza sold. So that tells me that Polly sells 6 pizzas, or excuse me, for every pizza she sells, she makes $6 in profit. Now, let's jump back up to the question where it says write the x and y intercepts and describe their importance to the graph. So here's our x and our y intercept. What is that saying? How many pizzas has she sold here? Right, she sold 0 pizzas here. How much money has she made? She's made negative $90. How do you make negative $90? Talk to your side partner just a minute about that, about how you make negative $90. Pause it here so you can talk. All right. How do you make negative $90? Right, that's her startup cost. That's how much she owes. Okay. What is this going to represent? How much money does she make here at her x-intercept? Right, she makes $0 here. This is going to be her break-even point. We need to know how many pizzas she needs to sell to be able to break even. Well, I know my slope and I know my y-intercept. Can I write my equation? Y equals 6x minus 90. To find my x-intercept, I put a 0 in for y. So I'm going to solve for x. I'm going to add 90 to both sides. I get 6x equals 90. Divide both sides by 6. I get x equals 15. She has to sell 15 pizzas just to break even. Okay. All right, so questions D and E, you can answer on your own. You've got the equation right here. So go ahead and do that, and for tomorrow I want you to finish that worksheet.